Welcome to the intermediate tutorial for Google Sites. You've either just completed my novice tutorial or you felt like you had a little bit of experience with Google Sites and chose to start here instead. If you missed it, your login to sites.google.com is your Wake County email address and your password is your employee ID number. So for this tutorial, we're mainly going to talk about things that can make your web page look more professional, which hopefully will translate to you helping your students make their web page look more professional. So let's start out by talking about URLs. So sites.google.com is going to be your default no matter what, unless you choose to host your own domain, which I think with the WCPSS account you can't do anyway because you're within their domain. So you can change some things, however. First of all, I kind of left my site with a pretty lackluster title. So I'm going to go to More and Manage Site to make that look a little bit better. I'm not really going to change the name, but I'm going to make it look better. Okay, hit save, and that has now changed. However, it's important to note that even though I changed the title of my website, the URL up at the top has not changed. So your main site title will not let you change the URL. However, your subpages you can change. So for example, I created the images and video page in the previous tutorial. And if you look at it, that is my URL also. So eFolioTest1/images-and-video. When you have enough of these, or if you particularly like to have wordy titles for your web pages, these can become very cumbersome URLs, and those are nice to shorten. So if I go to Page Settings under More, I can actually change that. So I can change it to something shorter, like Visuals. It's also a good idea, or at least I think it's not a bad idea, to disable comments and disable attachments. I don't generally have those on any of my web pages because, first of all, with comments, only your site collaborators can actually leave you a comment. So most people, all they would see at the bottom is you're not allowed to leave a comment, in which case, what's the point of having it there? The attachments I don't really like to include because I prefer having things either directly hyperlinked or directly embedded into the web page. I think it looks a little bit better rather than having a bunch of files just listed at the bottom. So I usually turn both of those off. And if you scroll down to the bottom, now you see that the images and attachments, the attachments and comments options are gone. And I don't have my updated URL yet because it had just changed. But if I refresh the page, or actually if I go back to Home and then go back to Images and Video, you'll see now it just says Visuals, which is a little bit nicer. Okay, for the next part, let's talk about adjusting our site layout and our page layouts. So let's start with page layout since I'm already here. In order to do that, we want to click on Edit the Page. And obviously we have this layout button. Now granted, there's not a whole lot you can do with this, but I do have some things that I like a little bit better. I'm kind of partial to the 2-column format. And generally I would put some stuff up here, but just for the sake of showing it to you, I'm going to drag my video over here instead. So instead of having this long list with all this white space on the side, I now have my 2 items kind of nicely displayed. So I have my picture and my video still on the same page, but in a little bit more concise package. Okay, so that's adjusting your page layout. That's kind of the extent of what you can do with it. All right, now adjusting our site layout, and this is also going to go into the next bullet, which is talking about switching to horizontal navigation. So when you click on More, you have a button that says Edit Site Layout, and you can add some different elements to your website here. So I like to add a custom footer where I talk about copyright and Creative Commons usage of my website, so basically what I want other people to do with my stuff. But we're also going to talk about adding horizontal navigation. Before we do that, let's look a little bit more at the sidebar. So the sidebar defaults to navigation that's going to automatically be organized, and because I'm a control freak, I don't really like it to automatically organize my navigation. So let's say for some reason I want to, why should I even have my home page show? Because when you click on eFolio test site, then it'll take you there. So I'm going to have my information page show up first, and I'll have my images and video page show up then. I would like to keep the sitemap link But if I wanted to toggle which way these are displaying, I can just use the up and down arrows to change that. Okay, you can also add URLs for other web pages there as well. Another element that's kind of nice to add sometimes, you can add more navigation, like another chunk of navigation information. You can add a descriptive text. But recent site activity is kind of nice for, especially if it's something that you have students looking at, then they can at least see what you've updated. So that's basically kind of the things you can do with a sidebar. You can also add a countdown over there, which I always enjoy adding. So horizontal navigation. I actually utilize both of these on my classroom website, and this is just an example of something I would do with that. When you click on that option, you can change things about it. So I'm going to take the images and video out because I already have it showing. But I did add a link to my class website here instead. So for example, on my class webpage, the horizontal navigation includes the study tools that I have my students use kind of continuously. So things like Study Island, I use Quest with UT Texas, SAS Curriculum Pathways is another one. They're things that all my students could need at some point or another, and I kind of put them there to hopefully have them more readily available to them. Okay, so when I hit OK, I now have a couple tabs at the top as well. And you can totally switch and delete the sidebar navigation if you'd like and have only horizontal navigation. It's totally up to you. Okay, so those are a few things that you can do with your overall site layout. The next bullet point I had for the workshop was to talk about creating an image URL using Picasa, but unfortunately, as of right now, Wake County Public Schools does not have access to the Picasa app. And what I'm talking about when doing that is sometimes when I've tried to upload an image from my computer, I've had issues with it for one reason or another. It just doesn't like the image file, or it doesn't like the file ending. It's like JPEG instead of JPG, and I'm not exactly sure what the issues are. So the easiest way around that I've found is to create a URL for that image, and one way that I found that I like to do that is using Picasa, because then I'll just keep all of my website images in a Picasa album. But that being said, that's just something that kind of for your information if you have a public, or if you have a personal web page or a personal Google account. You could still do the same thing. The last thing we're going to do is work on adding a different gadget and tweaking it. So actually I'm going to do this on the home page, since our home page is totally empty currently. Really all of the things that we've inserted are considered Google gadgets. But if you look down at the bottom, you can actually add even more gadgets, things that aren't as commonly used. So the iframe or the include gadget is kind of cool because you can embed someone else's web page into your own web page, and that's like if they have a functioning portion that you want to show for some reason. The Twitter widget, it's kind of important to note that it does work, but when you're viewing that web page in Google Chrome, it for some reason does not work in Chrome. But if you have students viewing that Twitter widget in Safari or Firefox, and I believe Internet Explorer, they can see your live tweets there, or their live tweets, whoever's Twitter account it is. But let's just add a Google News element for the fun of it. So I'm going to focus on technology news, since we're doing a technology sort of workshop. And I'll hit OK. And there we go. So now I've got some science and tech news added to my homepage. Okay. As far as tweaking things, I kind of already showed that a little bit in the novice tutorial, but just again, basically if you click on any of your different gadgets that you have embedded and you click on the gear icon for properties, that's where you can do a lot of the different tweaks. Unfortunately for the news app, there's not a whole lot you can do because there's not much to it, but you can change things like the title, so science and tech news instead of just news element. You can include a border and a scroll bar if needed. You can also change the size of it and things like that. That's basically kind of the extent of the customization you can do with Google Apps, which I know is why some people don't really like it as much as far as a portfolio tool. But as I mentioned in the novice tutorial, I really like how when you click on insert, all of your Google stuff is already available. So if you have your students creating documents in their Google Drive, and they're creating presentations, like writing papers, creating spreadsheets, anything like that that's part of an assignment, then they have that available to already put on their portfolio. They don't have to take a picture of it. They don't have to try and copy and paste things. It's just readily there, which is why it's so nice, at least from what I think. Also, you have the same login for everything, which I'm sure you all can agree that we have way too many logins and way too many accounts. It's just getting kind of unbearable. But anyway, that's the end of the intermediate Google Sites tutorial. I'm Abby Wood. I hope that you found this helpful.